I'm experiencing a newfound freedom recently. My mother just crossed over in November, and I was caring for her for around 4 years. And as hard as that may be, it's been amazing to express in real time all of the signs, the reminders, and the experiences, that really testify that the soul continues on. Like I know it in my bones. When I went through my own personal experience of seeing my mother lose her life to cancer, I know that there's a part of my inner self that's saying, well, why did the angels let that happen? And then the angels didn't. It's more like that was a human experience, but your mother's still here whether she lived or died anyway. She wasn't lost. Yeah, she wasn't lost. She just returned to the place she never left.
Kyle Gray, welcome on Just Happen, brother. What are you most excited about right now, globally and in your life?
What was a good question. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. What am I excited about globally? I guess just the conversation around spirituality, I think, is awakening and is growing, and there's so many people seeing the world differently, and that is something that I genuinely am excited to be a part of, to see so many people kind of coming out of the spiritual closet and just, expressing their interest in things unseen, and the ability to contribute to your own experience and to heal your own body and to experience angels or the spirit beyond the need for a prophet or a teacher or a guru, but going direct. Like, that is such an exciting thing. And I said to my friend the other day, what an amazing time to be alive. I think that's the way I feel right now.
And in your life?
In my life, I'm experiencing a newfound freedom recently. My mother just crossed over in November, and I was caring for her for around 4 years. And as hard as that may be to have endured, and as hard as it is to maybe not have the physical presence of your mother, who I can only describe as my anchor on the earth, I also am experiencing a whole new freedom in life, and being able to do things and move around and kind of like really lean into my mission has given me a new excitement and a newfound purpose. And I feel that the work that I've been doing for 20 plus years really has just like people say, when people are speaking about money, they say, oh, it takes 10 years to become a millionaire. I think it's even more when you're really becoming a spiritual teacher. It's taken me 22 years, and now I finally feel like I might be one. So that feels exciting.
Yeah. How has your relationship with your mother, Diane, shifted since she crossed over to the other side?
I feel like all these different feelings, because there's one part of me, it's like I don't feel she's left. Like, that was the easiest thing to say, is like I don't feel she's left. There's actually been a continuation of a relationship. And it's so cool, because I've been doing this work, like spiritual work and connecting with the unseen, for a very long time, but it feels realer than ever now. Like it's an undeniable, in your face experience of the spirit. So I feel like there's this experience of I've not actually left. And I also feel like the way everything has all just kind of fell together or fallen together so effortlessly since my mother crossed over, I can't help but feel like her hand has been involved in everything that's going on.
Yeah.
So it's been amazing to actually express in real time all of the signs, the reminders, and the experiences that that really testify that the soul continues on. Like I know it in my bones.
And you've been seeing and feeling angels since you were 2, 3, 4 years old, and now this almost feels like even more visceral experience because of that mother-son bond.
Right.
And one of the biggest questions that you asked in your latest book is, can a human become an angel?
Right.
Do you feel like your mom has become an angel for you now on the other side?
I feel like she's like an angel, but there's still a bit of a difference between a human soul crossing over than an angel. And the main difference is when you become angelic, you lose personality essentially, because the personality is like a human construct. It's part of like being human. And so I'm still very much feeling my mother's persona and the way she would have said things and her humor, like that's the thing that always cracks me up the most, is like my mother was so sarcastic, and the things that happen when I hear her voice or I experience her energy, I feel like it's very sarcastic. And she always she would say things that are probably not right to say on this, but so yes, I feel that. Whereas like the angelic presence is an all-loving, non-judgmental presence, and it doesn't have as much personality, if you will, because it just loves anyway. Whereas my mother will still tell me to pull my socks up or to get on with things. So I don't think she's become an angel, but it is a question that I am still leaning into around angels, because when I was introduced to the world at large as like this kid that speaks to angels, there was already a precedence around who the angels were, what they looked like, how they appeared, who can speak to them, what they can say, what they can't say. And I came into this kind of like, the rules were already in play. And so I was kind of encouraged to play within those rules for the earlier parts of my career. And now I've kind of reached a point where I think I've got enough experience and expertise to kind of make my own choices about that. And the one thing everyone always said was that there's a real difference between the human soul and an angelic presence. And that all changed for me when I was sitting with someone who'd her angel appeared in the session, and there was just like this instant download of, this angel is her daughter. And I was like, there's an angel here and it keeps telling me that it's your daughter. And I said, did you lose a daughter? And she said, yes, my daughter was stillborn. And I remember being like, whoa, and I'm getting like angel bumps thinking too about it. And I just kept hearing, my angel, my angel, my angel, like over and over and over again. And I just said, why do I keep having to say my angel? And then the woman like opens up her phone and like scrolls up, and she has this picture of her daughter's headstone, and it says in speech bubbles, my angel. And I was like, whoa, like, this is incredible to have received that. And then I realized that because her daughter was stillborn and didn't have an ego, she transcended what it meant to be a human soul and went straight to the angelic. And I think that if anyone in their life can transcend their ego, then they can become angels. Like, that's what I've gotten to.
And I know you've done a lot of work with the Ascended Masters. So how does that play in, when we see humans that have walked this earth, that have essentially transcended, have they transcended the ego behind in this life and become angels on earth?
I was just speaking, I love Christ. Like, I'm really into Jesus, and also like Mother Mary. Like, I love all of that. And I sometimes find it difficult to determine if they're angels or not, because their presence is so angelic. And really that is what an angel is. It's just a presence of unconditional love. It's a love without condition, you know, and it's an energy that's emanating directly, streaming directly from the heart of God, but it has not separated from God. Like, that is the main thing. So the only thing is, the reason why the Ascended Masters kind of differ is they've still got that personality of, here's my life experience, here's what I have endured, and here's how I can help you overcome it too. Like, that's what I feel the Masters are. They are human souls who've evolved, recognize that when they have ascended, that they can teach people in similar situations, whether it be real life or metaphorically, how to overcome that, you know. So, but they're definitely all hanging out in the same space. There's no doubt. They're still in the heart together.
We'll talk about that space a little later, but I wanted to ask you, you've said that the answers to the questions I ask about angels change and deepen as I learn more. So let's say, like, looking back at the last few months or even maybe year, what have those new questions for you been coming in about the angels, about life, about, you know, the purpose of life, that have deepened the more you've deepened into yourself as well?
I mean, I think it's an open-ended question. I'm just always questioning everything, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that is great, because I feel like having a questioning always helps you really know if it's real for you or not, you know. And I was one of those kids that was just born believing, you know, like, I never questioned.
Yeah. No one had to convince you.
No, I was just wired up to God from the get-go. Like, and I feel really comfortable saying God, but there's no difference between God and the quantum field in my mind. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just this, like, ever-present intelligence that I have come from, but I've also never left. Like, I'm still there now, you know. So I've never questioned that presence. But I think more what I have questioned is people's perceptions of it. So, you know, like, earlier on in life, I was quite involved in church and, like, going to Sunday school and all these things. And it was always like, God will only love you if you're being good. And I'm like, but why? Like,
If you don't sin. Yeah.
Yeah. If, like, you know, if you don't do this, like, God won't be happy with you. And I'm like, I don't think God and Santa Claus or Father Christmas are the same thing. Like, and I think that many people in the world right now are suffering a kind of, like, low-key religious trauma with regards to the relationship with the divine. And it's like, your own, you know, the angels will only help you if you're being good. The angels will only, you know, help you if you're being high vibration. The angels, you know, and that was the things that I really started to question. And what I've understood is that sometimes the lowest ebbs of our life is really when the divine comes in. And, you know, it's like when we're really in the mud, when we're really in the sticky points, when we really are in a moment of darkness, I think that's when the light can be birthed for us once more. And so I think a lot of my questions have been around that recently about, you know, because people say to me, like, where are the angels when this is happening in the world? Or where are the angels when that's happening? And the answer to that is they're right there. They're not actually changing the human experience. They're letting us live it fully. And the truth is, whether we stay here or not, the angels are okay with that anyway. And that can be hard to hear as a human. Yeah. Because when I went through my own personal experience of seeing my mother, you know, lose her life to cancer, you know, I know that there's a part of my inner self that's saying, well, why did the angels let that happen? And then the angels didn't. It's more like that was a human experience, but your mother's still here whether she lived or died anyway. You know, she wasn't lost. Yeah, she wasn't lost. She just returned to the place she never left.
Yeah. Kyle, I'm curious to know, what is the most undeniable sign that you've sensed that the angels are assisting right now in this global awakening of consciousness that we started off talking about?
I mean, it's like, I don't even know. I don't know if there's a sign in, like, globally. I think that the most important thing I'll say about signs is signs are a personal anchor point. When you experience a sign, it's an anchor point or a milestone from the divine to show you that you are on the right track, that you are in a point of alignment. Angels can come into our lives in all points, whether we're in a good place or a bad place. And they'll come in to guide us and direct us. Even in life or death situations, they can show up and direct. But when a sign appears, it's a milestone marker or an anchor point to say, hey, you're on the right track. And you know, angels are here with you right now. So I don't think there's a global sign, but I think all of us are experiencing more signs. And the reason for that is there is a global awakening. People are realizing that they have a contribution to the evolution of the earth. And we can live in a way asleep to that, or we can show up to that and actually make an impact. And I believe that the impact doesn't always have to be about being an activist or being a frontline runner or healer or anything like that. It's actually just choosing to face your own darkness, your own insecurities, your own separateness, and finding the parts of yourself that you have not let love yet reach. You know, and I think when we start to face those, then we're doing something that can heal. So what I'm going to say to you is, when you're walking the path of truth, signs are inevitable. They will just show up anyway. You don't have to ask for one. You don't have to call them in. They just show up. And so, like, last week, I had an amazing sign happen to me last week. I was, one day I'm at the osteopath getting my knee worked on, which is my little moment that I'm facing right now. I do jiu-jitsu and, like, I'm always getting injured. And so I was getting my knee worked on and my phone kept ringing. And the next minute, I'm running from the osteopath to the house because I'm going to be on national television the next day. And I was not really keen on being on TV, but I was really keen about having a conversation around angels. And the reason that I was going to be on this television show speaking about angels, I'd love to say was because of my book, but it wasn't. It was because in the new Bridget Jones movie, I don't know if you know Bridget Jones.
I haven't watched it yet, no.
Okay, in the new Bridget Jones movie, there's a sign in the movie. And the sign is an owl appearing outside the family's house every single night, a white owl, and looking in. And there was, you know, several people in the house all experiencing the sign differently. And at the very end, something happens with the owl. And 4 different people see the sign, but they all get a different message from it. And so here I am being asked to go on national television to speak about this movie, you know, that's #1 in the box office right now, normalizing the conversation around experiencing universal signs, you know, signs from heaven that we're not alone. So I'm on my way there and I'm sitting in the front row. And this woman, the cabin crew woman comes up to me and says, "Mr. Gray." I went, "Yeah." She went, "Could you follow me, please?" And I was like, oh my gosh, there's something wrong, or, you know. So I go in and she pulls the curtain behind me and then she goes, "Look," and she whips out my book on the flight.
And I recognize you.
Right. And I was like, oh, she's like, "I forgot my passport today, so I wasn't able to go to the US, which I was supposed to be flying to New York. So I'm just doing Glasgow to London." And I was trying to figure out, you know, why was I forgetting this? In 14 years of being, you know, doing this job, I've never And she said, "Now I realize it's because you were going to be on my flight and I was supposed to meet you." So then I was like, "Whoa, it's a sign. Your angels want you to know you're on the right track." And then I wrote in her book 444. And then afterwards, she pulls out her necklace and she's got 444 on a necklace around her neck. And I was like, this is so like undeniable. The angels are here right now. You know, I could have written any number sequence combination whatsoever, but I chose 444. I always usually write 111. So I wrote 444 that day. And so like when you're on the right track and when you're saying yes to the opportunities that your soul is calling in for you, signs will just keep showing up as kind of like angelic high fives, you know, to say that you're on the right track and you're doing something that's going to make a difference. And that was mine that day. But my sign was also for her. And that's what I really love.
I've also had experiences where my phone literally lights up, no notification at all, on a number sequence, 1111, right. 333. You said so that the signs show up when we're on the right track.
Right.
Have you ever had an experience or heard of any experiences where a sign shows up to tell you, hey, you might not be on that right track, like let's get aligned?
Right.
There's something else sign for you? A warning sign. Right.
So signs always show up when we're on the right track. And when we see a sign, even though we like see it and we're like, holy smokes, that's so cool, you probably will know from your own experience that there's a feeling that comes with a sign. It's like, that's a sign. Like, you know, there's a knowing, like a download or a feeling that comes along with that. You're like, that's a sign. The same thing happens with a warning sign. You know, it's like a warning. You know, it's like, I need to pay attention here. A few years ago, I let someone else get in my head about something on a professional level. And that conversation was from a very low vibrational, lacking state. And it was basically, I'll tell you what the whole thing was. Someone else had used an artist that I had been collaborating with for years. And so their work and my work were kind of interwoven. And so like their branding and my branding was like the same thing. And someone was like, this person's using your artist and their brand looks like your brand. And it freaked me out. And I remember I was like getting really uptight about it. And I was like, what does this mean? Like, I don't want my message to come out a different way. So I was upstairs and I was changing my bed sheets. And next to my bed, I have this bronze Archangel Michael statue. And I went like that with the bedding and it hit the Michael and he flew across the room and his head came right off.
With the sword.
Yeah, there was just like a headless swordman at this point. And I was like, So I picked up the statue. And as soon as I picked it up, I heard the words in my mind, don't lose your head.
Ooh.
And I was like, whoa. And it was just like, it commanded me to like get it together because I genuinely believe there is enough for everyone. I don't care if you use the same artist as me. That's that person growing as well. They're having an opportunity. I'm having an opportunity. And it just threw me back into this place of like, get it together. And I think that when we are falling off the path, sometime a sign will show up so that we don't. And so when they happen, you know that's what it is. You know it's like the angels like putting you back in line and saying, hey, you're bigger and better than this. You can bring in a good energy rather than allow something else to pull you into a feeling of lack and restriction.
Yeah, now I'm going down a rabbit hole in my mind there because we are the ones that assign the meaning to the sign. You know,
right?
Like you could have interpreted that like, oh, then now I have to go cut off the artist's head or something like that. You know, you could have completely.
Well, I heard the message. It was like so clear. Don't lose your head. It was just like, whoa.
And when it comes to signs and universal signs, since we are the ones that are assigning the meaning to it, do you think that there are some signs that were meant to be angelic messages even before humans assign meaning to them, like the numbers, the feathers, the animals?
I feel like, I don't know if you can hear my dog. I'm really sorry if you can.
No worries. He's answering for us.
He's very protective. So yes, when I don't feel the angels are really attached to what signs are. I think a sign is a sign. And I've spent a long time really working on that with people, because people are like, you say this number means that, and this person says the number means that. And I'm like, but really all of it just is that you're on the right track and that help is available to you. That's the ultimate message of every sign. And so I think that a lot of people have attributed certain signs to certain things or certain meanings. And that's also okay. And I think you'll always find the right answer to what you need. But the most important thing is not to go outside yourself for the answer to the sign that you're receiving. It's really about, what do I feel this sign means to me? Or how did you feel in the moment you experienced it? Because that's the ultimate message, And I think that that's really important, because if we constantly keep getting other people's opinions on what we feel that sign means, then we're actually losing the whole point of it. And it's the fact that you got the sign. The angels came direct. They didn't need anyone to tell you that they were with you. You're receiving that for yourself. So why are you now going to listen to someone else's opinion about what that sign means for you? That's where we lose it.
Yeah.
And this is really anti-marketing, because I'm the guy that wrote the book with every single sequence of numbers in it and what they mean, But I get that across in there too. Like, your number sign can mean what you feel it means to you. It doesn't matter what I say about it. It's about how you feel about it.
Yeah. I love that you're honing in on the feeling, because essentially that's the message from our soul. Like when you said the angel bumps, and I get goosebumps all the time when I know I'm hearing truth. And that's the meaning I've assigned to it. Like some people get goosebumps when there's danger coming, but I've assigned a whole different meaning to it. And I feel differently when that sign comes. Hello, beautiful family. Quick one today. I just wanted to take a moment to thank each and every one of you that have subscribed to this channel. Your subscription means more than you know. Even though it's free, what you're doing is you're empowering a whole channel to be able to do this every single day and continue showing up in the way that we can with all of our resources on hand. Thank you for contributing to the growth of this channel, for sharing it with the people that you love, for creating a conscious movement of individuals that are seeking the sovereignty and the divinity of their soul. This is why we're here. And if you haven't already and you're enjoying this content, I invite you now to look below on that little button that says subscribe and welcome you properly to this community. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being who you are and being pure love and radiating that with everyone that you see. Back to the episode.
Yeah. I get the goosebumps in my neck or my shoulders if it's not good.
Yeah.
My arms will stick up if it's good, but if it's here, I'm like, ooh, something's there.
Yeah. So by now we've said that the angels are assisting humanity, not only individually but collectively. Do you feel that there's any angelic message or theme that we're looking into for the coming years? Because the world that we're seeing now is very different to the world that we saw 5 years ago. And I imagine that the world in 5 years is going to look very different. Do you think there might be a message that the angels right now are, coming through very strongly for you about what's coming?
I want to just talk about this before we go into it, because I think when people hear any messages with regards to the state of the world, I notice that the feedback that I always get is really interesting, because people think that I'm being political when I say certain things. And I think it's important to say that the angels are apolitical. Like, they don't care who's in power. Like, that's really important. So, because I remember I put something up and someone's like, you think this about this politician. I was like, I don't live in America. You know, and like people seem to think this is like the epicenter of the world. And so what I'm going to say to you is when I ask the angels about the state of the world, and like where it's going, the messages that I always keep receiving over and over and over again are very simple. The first one is face your own darkness. Like, that's the main message that I get all the time. And the angels say that light contributes to light and darkness contributes to darkness. And in a world that feels dark at times, the only way to avert the world from that darkness is to find our own individual darkness. So if you have your own stuff that you are letting stay in the shadow realms, then that's what you're contributing to the planet. And so often people think that the angels are going to tell us how we stop wars or how we stop, you know, certain things happening. But ultimately, we have to find our own individual contribution to darkness. And that's usually the stuff within us that we've suppressed. And it's also the stuff that we're trying to disassociate with, our own traumas, our own darkness, our own fears. That's what's contributing to the unsteadiness of the world. So that's the first thing that they always say to me. And when you think of that, it's like, oh, I never... But really, when you face your own darkness, there's usually a few things that happen there. One, if it has anything to do with personal relationships, it means that you're in some way affecting a whole host of different people. Because how we feel about one particular person, we know for a fact has some sort of physiological, pharmacological impact on some level.
Yeah. And
we also know that if we feel a certain type of way in our body, it has a neurological, pharmacological effect upon us. So it's like just thinking about that, you know, is quite exciting. So like as soon as you have that shift, then you might feel a certain type of way in a positive way about that person. And that might then in turn help them feel a different way about someone in their life, and so on and so on and so on. So there really is a knock-on effect about the energy of forgiveness and healing relationships. And we also know that how we feel about ourselves is also going to affect other family members, you know. I'll never forget this one time that the angels came through to this woman who I was working with, and they said to her, it's time for you to heal the way you see yourself and the way you think about yourself. And it was really in regards to her past. And she's like, I don't really care about myself. And then the angel said, but she has children. And I said, how would you feel if you thought that your daughter felt the same way about herself that you feel about yourself? And she's like, I would never wish this on my worst enemy.
Wow.
And I said to her, but by you normalizing the way you speak to yourself, you're also saying it's okay for her to do it too. And she had like this radical shift there. So I think in the state of the world, and to encourage healing, I think we just have to recognize that the stuff that we might consider small work in our own life is actually big work in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing that they always say is be a better neighbor. Because the angels will always go to the person who's worse off.
Really?
Yes. They will always go to the person that if we were angels, you know, we're going to try and help the person who's on death's door first, because we know that person's got more time, more energy, more conviction. They're always going to help the person that's worse off. And so I always say to people, if you want to experience more angels in your life, you just have to be more like them. And you have to ask yourself, where in my life and where in my world am I withholding my love the most? And so it's all about being a better neighbor. Sorry.
No worries. You said that the main purpose of the angels is to reflect love back to us,
Yes.
to remind us that it's within us.
Right. When people speak about the idea of seeing an angel, and like a lot of people are scared of that, but when we really get into the idea of seeing an angel, it's like quite wowing, you know. Like if you've ever seen an angel, it's pretty insane, you know. Like they are made of pure light and they are a being from the heavens, you know. Like that's really exciting. But when an angel looks at us, they see exactly the same thing. When your angel looks at you, Emilio, they're like, oh my goodness, look at this being of utter light. You know, they're like, look at this human being, pure love embodied. And so they're just as wowed by us as we are by them. And the reason for that is it's the contract of our souls. Like they were made for us. You know, so like if you're not reaching out to your angel or calling upon them, you are leaving them purposeless. And as soon as you call them in, you allow them to be purposeful.
What do you feel the world would look like if angels were not created to support in the physical reality ever?
It would probably be like the way all the channels like imagine the golden earth to look.
If the angels were not present?
Oh, sorry. Oh, if they were not present. Sorry, I thought you said if they were present. If they weren't present, how would the earth look? I'm not genuinely sure. There's that Bible quote about, you know, entertaining angels unaware. And I think there's a lot more angels at work than we can even comprehend possible.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure.
Why do you feel, you opened up the new book, saying that the feeling of being supported and protected by angels is more important now than ever? Is there a specific reason why now is the most important time to be supported and protected by them?
You know, it's funny, you're saying things that I've written and I'm like, why did I say it like that? You know? I think that there is an unrest here. There is an unrest. And I think the unrest has a purpose. The unrest is to awaken. And I don't think God's been like, okay, I'm going to make the world be super duper like uneasy right now. I think it's just a natural sounded really Scottish there. It's just a natural thing that's unfolded based on the way the world has been. But I feel like in order for the world to return to a sense of safety, we have to feel safe. You know, Thich Nhat Hanh, one of my favorite people on the planet, you know, he crossed over a few years ago, but he spoke about like the earth would not feel safe unless we feel safe. And you know, there's a synergetic relationship there. You know, because so many people feel unsafe on the earth, but the earth doesn't feel safe with us either. You know? And so I think reaching out to the spiritual and developing a relationship with a presence that has been made to guide and guard can in turn support us feeling more safe. If we feel more safe, we can be a better neighbor. We can face our own darkness. And if we can do that, we're going to contribute greater light. And in turn, the earth starts to become a more safe place to be.
Who or what created the angels in the first place?
So when we think about angels, we often like take a human approach to it. So we think about you and I, and we're down here on the earth. And so it kind of like playing that game Sims when you're growing up, you know, and you like make a little world. And so sometimes people think there's like, you know, a guy up there who's like, I'm going to make an angel and it's going to be like that. What angels are is if source, you know, was to be a brain, every time the brain was to think, the thought would be an angel. It's just like an expression, a brainwave of God. Or if God was to be a heart, the heart beats would be an angel. So angels are just emanations of the divine. they're never separate from it. So they were never necessarily created. They just are. Mm-hmm. So when we as humans try to understand what an angel is, we create it as an image, a being, a thing or that. And I've realized that these are all just man-made interpretations of what angels are. And even though I've had experiences where I've seen angels, a few years ago, I woke up and I've seen angels for a very long time and I just stopped seeing. And I was like, I can't see them. That's weird. And then I went into meditation like I always do. Meditation is my Google. I always ask in meditation what I need to know. And I said, angels, are you there? And I got a response of, we are here. And I was like, why can't I see you anymore? And then I received the message, because our image is actually an illusion. And I was like, okay. And they said, we are emanating from the one, but we have never left the one. And I was like, oh, okay. And so at that point, my idea of angels started to change. The angels are in fact like the intelligence of the divine. And when we tune into angels, we're actually just communing with the brainwaves of God, just the thoughts of God, never separate.
Wow. And that even takes us to deeper questioning to ask, what are we then in connection to source and the divine? Are we also those emanations in a different way? Yes,
we are. Yeah, I feel so. A Course in Miracles defines angels as the thoughts of God, but it also defines the Son of God as the thoughts of God too. So we're all just
God has a lot of thoughts.
It does.
Infinite.
I genuinely feel that's what it is. That's where I get really stuck sometimes, because I'm like, I do feel alive. I'm really having a human experience, but I also could also not be. I feel like I'm still there, even though I'm here. And that's where I get stuck the most. That's probably why I've never done plant medicine, because I honestly think I would fully merge.
You disappear in mid.
I genuinely think I would merge. And that's what I call it, merging. When I call in the angels, I imagine myself like merging with them as one. So sometimes I worry, like if I was to do that, I probably would want to merge fully.
What is an earth angel?
An earth angel is really just someone who gives without needing to receive. It's someone who just loves because they can. It's just someone who is emanating just the energy of authenticity, love, devotion, and service. Like they are just it. And that's really what it is. Someone who gives without needing to receive. And I give many different examples of those at times. Like, I don't know if you've ever just met one of those little grandmothers who just live for chapel, and they like go and light candles for everyone, and they've always got like a bag of miraculous medals in their pocket. And do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Those are earth angels. But it also can be like people who just want to help others who are less fortunate than them. But it's people who give not needing to receive. That's really the key here. Because I think a lot of people give wanting something to come back in some shape or form. They just give, and they know that everything will be taken care of.
I believe in the book you also described it as people who embody divine qualities.
Right, and that's it. Authenticity, love, devotion, service, all those divine qualities.
Yeah. And when I think of that, I think of children. And what are your thoughts on, the children and the new generations that are stepping forth on the planet right now?
I feel like children are emanating angelic energy until they get a cell phone, and then
until they get their ego honed in.
then that happens. You know, I was definitely one of those children who were attached to the television growing up. And I often would wonder how my life would be different, how more connected I would be if I didn't have a TV. You know,
You think you would be a lot more connected?
I
To
think
the
I would be
angelic realm?
even way more connected, way more heart based. Yeah.
So what is it about TV or entertainment or cell phones that takes us away from that?
It untrains us. You know, it actually quietens down our receptors for feelings. It kind of, it takes that away from us. We don't feel the same way, because like from very early on, even watching cartoons, like loads of characters die repetitively in these TV shows. It's like, you know, or like are inflicted with pain, or, you know, I'm thinking about all the shows I watched growing up, like Power Rangers, and, you know, like just like constantly killing things, and it's just like muting us, you know, and it normalizes a lot of this stuff. So yeah, I think that
I'm shocked how desensitized, you know, I've been in the past when I'm looking at a movie and I just see someone get murdered and I'm like
I know, it's so weird.
desensitizes us.
Right. So if it's doing that to things here, I think it also like desensitizes us to people's feelings and their emotions as well, because I think people give us feedback in life about how they're feeling about personal relationships or stuff that we're going through, or and that's something that I've noticed a lot more recently in personal relationships with certain individuals in my life. I'm like, oh, I thought everyone just expressed how they felt all the time, but they don't. They really don't.
Especially men. You know, we're having this conversation and I've definitely been that in the past where I haven't been able to express fully my feelings about things.
Yeah, because like I had a conversation with my dad. I know he'll be cool about me speaking about this. We went out for pizza the other day, and we're just hanging out. And I was on, like I said, I was on TV the other day, and the reason I'm talking about it so much is it's really opened up a lot of conversations, and it's let a lot of things be seen recently. And one of the things that my dad felt really triggered by was, while I was on this show, the woman said, yeah, you were brought up in a single parent household, which I was with my mother, but my dad wasn't not around. It's just I lived with my mother. But he felt like he was completely, you know, he was out of the scene, or people thought that he felt like people thought he was out of the scene. It really like upset him. And so he texted me about it, and then we spoke about it at the time, but when I was in front of my dad the other day, I was like, can we just speak about like the he's like, no, we don't need to talk about it. And I was like, no, I really feel like we need to talk about it, because I want you to know, like, I genuinely really appreciate you as my dad, and you've been an amazing father, and we have an amazing relationship. But not only that, you're my friend. Like, I really care deeply about you. And he starts crying, you know, and he was like, oh, I really needed to hear that. But I was like, but you didn't want to, like, you were like, no, like, and I think that even we actually talk ourselves out of having these deeper conversations, you know, even if they're, and I was like, and I just want to, on my part, I can communicate this differently going forward. I can be like, my parents were divorced, you know, that's the easy conversation. And he was like, oh, I would really appreciate that, you know. And I was like, well, I'm so glad that we had this conversation, and like we can speak about these things. That's okay to me, and I'm okay with feedback, you know. And I think that's one thing that I was going to say is that we've been trained not to receive feedback about what we might do and how it might have an impact on someone else that we love, you know. Because I said something else to someone else in my life recently, and they like stormed off and like, you know, left. And I was like, but you could have just been like, no, I think differently about that. And I would have heard it, We don't have to run away from feelings. We can actually just show up to them.
Yeah. Vulnerability immediately brings the walls down. And in the conversation of the earth angels, it's like vulnerability is probably also a divine quality for someone, you know, because it's letting our guard, you know, down, and our heart opens. And our heart open means that we are closer to the divine, because our heart's what's most in tune with the, you know, energy of source, because source is neutral. Our heart is the neutral point in our body. So that's really interesting that we sometimes resist that connection to source because we're afraid of it.
I was looking up the name of that Aikido master. I don't even know how to say his name, Ushiba. And he said something along the lines of, the only shield we actually need is our soul. You know, and I think that really is a quality of spirit, is the capacity to get into a vulnerable state, to be seen wholly and fully.
When it comes to talking about shields and protection, I'm thinking immediately about Archangel Michael.
Right.
Why do you feel he was depicted with a sword in his hand?
I mean, it's actually was a spear in the Bible. He had a spear, and then it's just like Renaissance art has. I mean, I'm wearing one around my neck. It was a spear, and he stood upon Lucifer, and he speared him. Like, that was the story. And then I think we've just taken that into like the modern age and turned the spear into a sword because it's more in use, I guess.
In the future, it's going to be a lightsaber. I
was going to say, yeah, but in these days, it's probably like an AK-47 or something like that, you know, like. So yeah, I feel like the sword or the spear is actually a really powerful tool because it represents like a directness and a sharpness and the ability to cut through something. And in that story where Saint Michael was called upon, you know, it's Michael, the Legion of God, was called upon to take Satan or Lucifer and cast him into the pits of hell. Like that actually is a metaphorical moment, you know, and it's actually just about the ability that good has to reign over evil, and you know, evil is just for me an aspect that has forgotten of its goodness. Like, that's it. It's just like being disconnected. And so I think Michael has been loved and respected by many because it's like this energy of light that has the ability to overcome everyone's greatest fear. And in more religious times, that was kind of like a presence of a devil, or, you know, something that was scary.
And all different cultures have that representation of a deity or an angel that has the ability to cut through, you know, challenges or obstacles. You know, in Hindu traditions, it's Ganesha, you know, the remover of obstacles. When it comes to talking about, obviously this is more from a Western perspective, when we're talking about like archangels and angels, I've always been curious about why it's been talked about as a hierarchy. Like, you have the seraphim, the archangels, like the guardian angels, maybe. Why have we depicted it or seen it as there's this hierarchy?
Yeah. I will say that the hierarchy stuff is actually just, sorry, that's Amazon at my door. The hierarchy stuff is actually just from opinion. It was actually kind of brought into play by the Catholic Church in, I think, the 14th century. So it's kind of new. It's not actually it's not written down anywhere. But there was mentions in older texts that the seraphim were the highest form of angels. But there's no actual hierarchy. I think that's just more to help the humans understand it. You know, when you think about the hierarchy of angels, and I really love the history of angels, so I love all that stuff, and I think, but it's not like this, it's more like that. If that makes sense.
They play different roles.
Right. The if you were to imagine the divine as a circle, the angels gather round rather than are underneath in kind of like a family tree. They're in circles, and they're just like different aspects emanating from that. And the more further out they get, the more humanoid they become.
Mm.
Like that's what I would say.
So when you encounter like an archangel versus someone's guardian angel, what is that experience like? How is it different?
I generally really lean into the guardian angels thing. Like that's really what like lights me up the most. And but the archangels for me are like a bigger pool of energy, and their voices are very commanding. So when I speak to someone and I hear, like, say I look at you and I hear Archangel Uriel, or like Uriel's name, the reason I'm saying that archangel to you is it's because what that archangel represents is something that you're about to embody or experience in your life. And for example, Uriel's the angel's whose name means God's light, and he sheds light on all darkness. And so therefore he's the angel of learning and study and growth, and like that's the angel I get when I look at you. So it's about moving into some sort of learning capacity, or like learning a new skill in order to grow and in order to share. And so that's the way it works for me. I don't necessarily think that archangel is there, but I think that you can call upon that archangel to let you, or to help you with that particular circumstance. But at the same time, your own angel will be dedicated to all aspects of your life, every single part. And I believe that the angel that we all have has been with us like for lifetimes upon lifetimes upon lifetimes. Like they've been with you before you're even Emilio, they've been way before that.
Yeah. I heard you say once in another conversation that the guardian angel records the soul's journey.
Right. They're like the record keeper.
That's a long journey too, because if we've been around for eternity, then it's probably a long book they're writing.
That is a big memory card, but they hold the keys of your life's plural experiences.
Can they see your future experiences as well?
So here's how it works. Nothing has been set in stone, but based on what you are putting out into the quantum, they can see.
Like potential timelines.
Mm-hmm. And so like I've met with people, and the angels have said, if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen. But all of that can be changed based on your beliefs. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like, I don't know if this has happened to you, but I've had multiple exit opportunities in my life where I could leave. I feel like
starting from when you were very young, when you had
when I got super sick when I was younger, I feel like that was an exit point. I could have left the matrix at that point there, and yet I chose to stay. And I also see that with my own mother, like in her health, there was many moments that she could have left earlier. So I think based on what you believe, what you know, what you know to be true in your being, your life can change. Everything can be changed. You can rewire everything. You know that more than anyone. If you're studying Dr. Joe's work, like people can change the outcome of the future based on what they believe and what they really, really know.
And the angels can't necessarily interfere, because in the book you talked about the law of free will.
Right.
So
they're not attached to what you do. And that's the hardest thing for anyone to hear, especially if their fear is to lose someone they love. Like, your angel's not attached if you stay here or not. But I always say that your angel's not attached, and they've not got a plan for you, but you have a plan for you. You have a plan for you, and your soul is hardwired to grow. So when things are difficult, that's actually when your soul really comes into action.
And what does growth look like for the soul?
It can be anything for anyone. I think as long the soul is hardwired to grow. Here's something that the angels has shown me recently, and I've been thinking about that. My big question was, do we choose our parents? Like, do we come in and do we like, oh, I'm going to go to them? And the angels say, you don't choose your parents as in mentally point them out and say, ha, that's going to be my parents. What actually happens is when our parents are together, or when our parents are conceiving us, both of their souls let out a deep cry for love. And our soul is called to the earth in response for our parents' soul cry for love. And so even though they might be in love together, there's still a deeper call that wants to have a deeper integration experience of love. And our soul is called to them. And whether their actual human self can receive that love or not is down to them. And that's why you'll see many parents exiting as soon as a child is born as well, because they actually can't handle the love that the child was born to bring.
Wow. What about those souls? You know, you talked about the stillborn, and you know, even my mother, she lost a child in pregnancy. What's the role of those souls that get lost, you know, before they have the chance to even incarnate as, you know, physical bodies?
I mean, it's a really great question, because I don't think I know the answer. Like that is the truth. But like breaking it down to the thing I was just speaking about is the soul is hardwired to grow, right? And so it's going to choose the parents that are going to bring you growth. Even if it looks shiny on the outside, I can guarantee you there's growth in every case. Because, like, you know, I know children of billionaires, and there's growth happening there too. You know, it isn't all golden as you might think. So the soul is hardwired to grow. Sometimes that when a soul doesn't make it, they will find another way to come to you. Like that is the way I see it. I think all souls are recycled. And so sometimes it's just the biochemistry wasn't right, or something was out of balance, or, you know, like, but they always try and find a way back. They always do.
What does it mean that all souls are recycled? Is that like have any connection to reincarnation as well?
Yeah. And here's what I also think. I think that the soul is not running on a linear times, you know, scale. So I think that there's a part of me that's probably in another lifetime living another experience at this time. Mm-hmm. And yet there's also a part of me that never really left where I came from. And so therefore, in my past life, I could have been your great aunt who you're now praying to. And I could be helping you as your great aunt from the spirit realm, while also in my next lifetime having my next experience. Like, that's the way I think about it.
Why does it light you up to work with people's guardian angels?
I feel the reason for that is because there is an opportunity to develop a personal relationship with that presence. And that presence purpose is to hold you in the highest of esteem. They look at you with the most unconditional love in their heart, in the hope that one day you will too be able to see yourself from that same space. And if you did, then the choices that you make, you know, the way you move forward in your life will be from that space. And it'll always be towards the highest good of all beings at that point. So when we get in touch with our guardian angel, we have a feeling that we're part of something great. There's a sense of being included, a feeling of coming home that happens. And that's very important for us, because we can be in the busiest of rooms and the busiest of households, but yet feel like we don't have a place. The guardian angel's purpose is to give you a sense of place.
Mm.
And that's very important, because it's hard to be human. And that's speaking from a place of privilege, you know. I have many privileges and many blessings in my life, but it's still very hard to be human. Like, I wouldn't be honest with you if I didn't say that.
Kyle, I don't want to put you on the spot or anything. We don't have to include this, but if you feel called to maybe receive a message from my guardian angel for this community, I think that would be a really beautiful space. If you don't want to, no worries at all.
You mean like to see what your angel has to say?
Sure.
Well, I want to go back to what I was saying previously. You know, when I look at you, I see Archangel Uriel's light, and that's really exciting, because Uriel's presence is about being a light, and I feel like you are being called to do that. And I feel like being a light doesn't have to be about, you know, living a spiritual life and wearing all white. It's actually about taking things that might not be understandable and reachable and making them get to the places that they've never been before, or never been able to reach before. And so I genuinely feel like the angels have recruited you to be one of them. And I feel that the angels are recruiting you to contribute a light and to shed light on parts of the world that can't. And so I do feel that you're in a place where you are being prepared right now, and there's this opportunity for you to grow. And yet I also feel that you're in this place of trying to figure out how that all looks from a earthly level, about, you know, making the finances work, making an income, funding everything, putting it all together. And I can see you like trying to figure out how that looks for you. And at the same time, I think you also have a deeper trust that it's all going to unfold. But I also want to say this to you: do not be concerned if you feel like you are going backwards, because it's really going to take you forwards. And so if it feels like you're having to step into more muggle style roles, I'll call them, where you're like doing a normal job or working a normal thing, it's actually part of your training. Because I feel that what's really important to say to you, Emilio, is what I know about you from your energy is that you do feel things deeply inside of you, and you have a tendency to want to fix everything you see and help everyone progress, and you will put life behind it to make sure that what you do is done to the best of your ability. But I also feel like that can be detrimental to you, because it will burn you out, and it will be a lot to take on board. And so kind of see it as the universe is giving you as much as you can handle and as much as you can carry, one step at a time. And it's actually, by doing so, training your muscles. It's actually giving you muscle strength. If I was to like walk into the gym and hadn't have done it for a while and tried to pick up 200 kilos, it might be quite hard. But if I start building myself up, then the strength will be there eventually for me to do that big heavy rep. And I feel that's exactly what's happening with your career right now, and with your purpose and your calling. I feel like the universe is actually giving you little moments where you can actually take a step back and regrow and heal your muscles and rest them, and then you'll get the next thing again. So that feels what's actually happening. But the other message that keeps coming in is that as much as you are wired to grow, and as much as you are wired to be of purpose, I also think it's important for you just to be human and have a blooming amazing time. You know, and I feel like sometimes you'll find yourself caught in that place of, you know, I should probably be doing something that's more practical with my time and my energy. But no, I think the having fun and building personal relationships and enjoying the company of other people is actually so important to what you're doing. It's actually all part of the training.
Yeah.
It's all part of the training.
Beautiful, brother.
Oh, I could go off.
Go off.
Okay. I'll tell you something else. You were born in response to something else. You were here, see, from the father side of your life, you're actually here to rewire a pattern. And I don't know what it is, but I do feel like the male side of your family, you're here to heal. And so I don't know if your father's side isn't integrated emotionally, or it finds it very difficult to express the way that you've been led to, but I do feel that you're going to change the lineage by being alive, just by being more in touch with your heart and your feelings and how you express yourself and the choices that you make. Because I think that if we were to take a bird's eye view of your life and your lineage, I think all the men would have fallen into a similar pattern of living a certain type of way and, falling into old ways of being. And I think you're here to rewire it and change it. And that feels exciting, but it's also quite a lot of weight to carry. It's very intense. It's loaded. And so you might feel the pressures of that at times. And, but it's definitely to do with your masculine. Like, that's big stuff.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Do you not speak to your father?
No, we do. We have a good relationship. Yeah.
Is there something to do with his father and him not speaking? Because I feel like, good. Well, I mean, not good, but I'm glad I'm picking it up, because I think your response, your soul was called to your dad. I think he needed you more than he realized. And I think he needs you more than he realizes now. And I think whatever relationship you build between your father and you is actually healing his relationship with his father and him. And it's like what you two do together is like going to be momentous about, the rest of the family to come.
Wow.
That's so exciting.
Wow. That's incredible. You picked up on that.
Yeah, I feel
I shouldn't be surprised, brother. You're the OG.
I think that your dad is way more heart-centered than people might think.
Yeah.
You might, because he feels very strong to me, and it feels like he's got it all figured out. And some people might not think that he's a deeply sensitive soul, but he actually is. He feels a great deal. Yeah. And I feel like he'll have helped you in your life, but I think you'll help him a lot as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Anyway. Thank you for bringing that to light, brother. Appreciate it. And obviously we'll share that with the people as well, because that's a message for everyone as well, that can relate.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I know I go off on one. One of
the things that's really interesting as you were talking about, that and my energy, and is that, we're only a decade apart, and, you were given a book deal at 20 with Hay House, named UK's youngest psychic. Like, what was navigating that at such a young age, like going into your 20s? Like, did you feel like you maybe didn't have that human experience that you're telling, like, hey, that's important to have? What was it like navigating being so gifted at, and being recognized and seen by the world at such a young age?
I think I did have to go back and play more later, because I started doing like readings from 15 onwards. So, it's like, it's always been a very big part of my life. But when I got to 20, it was like 19, I stopped doing readings for a while, and I took 1 year off and I went to music school. So that was an amazing experience. And then when I emerged from there, I ended up going on to DJ for a couple of years. And so I ended up like winning like a DJ competition, and then I got signed, and I was actually like doing well at DJing, and that was an amazing thing.
That could have been your path too.
No, it was going to be. And so there actually came this point, and I think this is important to say, that I was getting booked to support big DJs. Like my last gig, I was supporting Calvin Harris, and the just before the show started, the sound system crashed and they cancelled the entire concert. And it was a big sign for me. It was so huge.
Warning sign.
It was, because I had already received the book deal with Hay House. I had already started to do that. And I was kind of like in a really wonky place of in the newspaper writing, building the spiritual work, and also DJing, and it just became a clear path that this wasn't where I was supposed to be. I was not supposed to be here. And every big concert I got booked, there was a sound system issue every time. And for me, that was the message. Like, you're not supposed to be doing this. And it was at that point I was like, I'm going to hang up my headphones, you know. And that was like, it was when that all went wrong, I finally full bodily said yes to the Angels. And when I did that, everything changed in my life. Everything. You
put on different headphones. Now you're with headphones and a microphone talking about Angels.
These are DJ headphones. I still have the whole setup, but I knew at that point that when I said yes fully to the Angels, things would change, and they did, and they definitely did. And I was like catapulted into this world.
So what happened when you stopped doing the DJ thing?
I just wasn't as cool anymore. There was an integration period that happened, because even though I was a DJ and people knew I had this kind of spiritual side to me, it was all of a sudden, I didn't just do spiritual work by, half-heartedly. I was like in newspapers, in the media, like really getting a lot of attention. And that, I wasn't looking for that. I was not, but it kept coming to me. And the reason for that was, I knew that I was going to be able to normalize the conversation around having a spiritual experience. But as I maybe previously mentioned off camera, at first it was all about, who are you? Like, you're the psychic, you're the guy, you can do all this stuff. And it wasn't actually about me. People thought it was about me, but it was actually about me saying, no, you can do this too. You can actually receive this for yourself. And that's what I feel like it's taken 20 years to actually get there. It's now people are like less worried about my part and like, no, here's my experience. Here's what I received. Here's the signs that I'm seeing. And that's been 20 years to get there. And I'm very excited about it now, because I'm like, the pressure's finally off me. It doesn't have to be about me and my gifts or what I can do. It's actually me saying, I've had this, but you can have it too. Mm-hmm. And people are really hearing that now.
What do you think changed in people?
I think it's with thanks to books like Becoming Supernatural, and books like The Secret, and books like Ask and It's Given. You're like, all these big books that have taught people how to manifest. Like, I think those books about changing your reality have actually opened up people into the work that I've actually done the entire time, that is that you have an angel and you can speak to them. Mm. But those conversations seemed way more left field than, oh, you're part of the quantum field and you can rewrite it. Yeah. So I think it's with thanks to work like that work like mine has become more palpable and palatable. Sorry, Kimes. Yeah.
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 I think people are ready to go deeper now too.
Right. And I think that the angels in particular were at first steeped in so much religious stuff, but now the use of oracle cards and crystals and all that has just become more normal, that people are able to get there without having to feel like they're being judged by a religious god or whatever.
Yeah. Do you have an oracle deck there near you?
I do.
Do you want to pick a card as
I
we start
did.
Wrapping it up? You already did. Read my mind out here.
I did it just after we did our thing, but it was this card. It's Faith. It's the angel Faith. It's Archangel Michael's twin flame. But the card is about moving mountains, and it says, trust in your ability to create miracles. The impossible is becoming possible. And I think that's what this age is teaching us, is that the impossible is now possible. You know? And I think that's really exciting. You know, like people are more in touch, more in reach, more able to educate themselves, teach themselves, train themselves than they ever have been. You know, and so it's like the people who were the outcasts of society and the most marginalized of people are now becoming the people who are the highest in, you know, power and authority and experience. And I think that in itself is one, you know, truth, that the impossible is possible. But every day people are healing themselves. Every day people are, you know, are experiencing miracles. It's incredible. And so if anyone is challenged by faith, I think this card is actually, do not, if you find it difficult to have faith in a higher power, find some faith in yourself. And when you do have that, you will have faith in a higher power, because you are.
What's the most impossible thing that you've seen in your life that has become possible?
I don't even know. I don't know. I think when I look at my own life, single parent household, from our parents divorced, living with my mother.
I was gonna say something.
I know, but that
call
is
you out on
important.
it.
Statistically, I should not be where I am, because I come from the most underprivileged town in Scotland. It's the stabbing capital of the UK. You know, gang violence from where I grew up is horrendous, and statistically, because I'm a high school dropout, I should probably be in prison, but I'm not. And I think that in itself is testament to, well, my parents' love, and also my ability to believe that I'm worth something, you know. And that's really powerful. I think I believed I was worth something. Even when all my teachers and all that gave up on me, I still believed that what I could do was possible. You know, so to get there to where I am now, I think is a miracle. And it shows others that if I can do it, anyone can. Really, I genuinely believe that.
Who wouldn't believe that they're worth something if they know they're surrounded by angels and guidance from above the heavens, higher dimensions, however you want to call them.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we know that, it's like, okay, like we're not doing this alone, and that enhances the belief that we have in ourselves and to change our life.
Yeah. And I think if anyone's listening to this and they're like, I'm not sure about that, I think this is the point where I say you need to ask for a sign for yourself. Like, I am willing to experience this for myself. I would love to believe this being possible. So I need something concrete so I can take it to the next step. You know, I mean, I even got to ask you, but do you remember the first time you received a sign?
Not the first time, but I've had many significant ones that have come up for me. Yeah.
I want to know your favorite before we finish this.
Okay, I'll share it. This actually goes back to how I received the sign to that I was on the right track, or it was actually a warning sign, and then it became a confirmation sign. When I was finishing college around 3-4 years ago, I started working at a startup that was kind of similar to, the work in like personal development, and like we were doing retreats and I was helping out there, but I just wasn't getting along with the way that things were being run in that company. And I was still doing the podcast, like, whenever I could. And, I was, dedicating my time into it because I knew it was my calling, but I still didn't believe in myself to be financially stable with the podcast. So I was like, I know I need to do this to be able to do that. So one night I woke up middle of the night, and it was like a clear sign that said, like a voice in my head that said, reach out to Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting, because it was 2 a.m. and it was very urgent. Like, you need to do it now. And I was like, didn't question it. I opened my computer. I went on his website and it said, contact us here. I wrote a message. I told my whole story. It was like a fat email. And then I sent it over, and then I went back to sleep. And then the next week I was on one of these other retreats that we were doing for this company. And I was there just, again, like really questioning, why am I here? Not getting along with, the people that are working in this company. And we were working one day during the retreat, because it was like a remote work type of retreat. And I opened my computer and I had an email that said media request accepted. And I'm like, okay, I opened it and it said, hi, Emilio. We are very pleased that you reached out to us. Dr. Joe would be very, excited to do this podcast with you. And I was like, what?
Whoa,
and
dude.
And I was like, okay. Like, and I told, the person that was at the company about it. He's like, oh, like, I want to do that with you. And I was like, well, like, this is an opportunity that came to me. I'm sorry. Like, I need to take this. And then he's like, well, then you're not staying in the company. And I was like,
no.
Oh. I was like, okay, well, pretty much, ultimatums were being thrown. And I called up a friend that, he was the only person that's ever sponsored the podcast. His company is called Raw Optics. I reached out to him because he's been to like 20 Dr. Joe retreats. And I knew that if there was one brand or company that I'd love to work with that felt very aligned to this, and also it was like a sign for me of like, hey, maybe you could make money off the podcast, because I hadn't even monetized anything. And I had been doing it for 1.5 2 years at that point. And he's like, yeah, sure, bro. Like, I'll do it. Like, send me your rates. I'm like, what rates? Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And then he's like, where are you doing the interview? And I was like, well, they sent me some options to do it on Zoom. And he's like, but where are you going to be? And I was like, well, after Mexico, because that retreat was in Mexico, I'll be flying to California to visit some friends. And he's like, well, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but if you're going to be in California, why don't you ask them to see if Dr. Joe can meet you in LA and you can record that episode in person? And as soon as he said that, I got full body chills.
Whoa, dude.
Like, just, it responded. Like, my body responded. It wasn't even something that I thought. Like, my body responded, and I saw a vision of me sitting next to Joe in the flesh, like in person, on 2 chairs. And I was like, I don't know what you just said there, bro, but I think this already happened, and all I need to do is make it happen. Like it already happened.
Right.
It was just like a knowing, like it already had happened.
Right.
And then I looked at my phone, like it vibrated. Someone had texted me, and I opened up my phone and it's 333. So I was like, holy shit. And then I opened my WhatsApp, because we were talking with him on WhatsApp call, and it shows how long the call had been going on for. And as soon as I opened my phone, opened the app, I was at 33 minutes and 33 seconds call with my friend. And I was like, bro, there's no way. Like, I just saw like 7 threes in a row. Like,
Let's
this
go.
has to be true. So that was probably one of the biggest, like, angel number sign synchronicities that really started this whole podcast. Because after we did that show, like, it opened a lot of doors. And it gave me a lot of self-belief and self-confidence. Like I was able to manifest this. Like who else, can I interview? And, if I'm worthy of receiving this, then, I'm worthy of receiving more too. So it just started me on this whole journey.
Love it.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Appreciate you for holding space for me to share. I've never shared that on the podcast before.
Oh,
so.
Really?
Never,
way.
bro.
That's
never.
so cool.
Never shared that story.
It's amazing. Incredible work.
Thank you, brother.
And I think that's how I found you, because I was just like, because I like Dr. Joe's work, and I've listened to his work and I've read Becoming Supernatural, and I was just like on my explore page, and then you came up, and I like watched the clip, and then I was like, oh, I'm going to follow him. But when I went onto your page, it said follow back. So I was like, oh, he already follows me. How cool.
Yes.
So I thought that was an amazing synchronicity. And then you're like, hey, bro. I was like, yo, what's up?
Let's do this. I was like, let's do this.
I was 100% in. When you asked me, I was like, yes, I'm ready. Let's go. I really appreciate it.
Beautiful. No, and in the spirit of the podcast, we end every show with this little segment called the Final Trio, which are just questions that we ask at the end.
Okay.
Before that, where would you send people to connect with you and your work, those that are maybe new to you? We have the new book that's out already. So where would you send people to connect with you?
I think if you're interested in my work, Instagram is a great place. I just share things all the time. Kyle Gray, UK. And you'll be able to get my books in every good bookstore, or on your favorite place to buy books. And that is one of the best ways to help an author, is just like buy the book, like it's a really big deal.
Yeah.
So Angels Are With You Now. I'm so proud of it, and I'm glad it's doing so well.
Yeah. Bestseller already.
Yeah. Sunday Times. I just found out.
Bestseller.
I found out I'm going to be in the top 3 this week in the Sunday Times. So I'm excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm excited for that.
Amazing. Awesome. For the final trio, the first 2 questions are personalized to the guest, and the last one we ask at the end of every show. The first one is, what is the greatest lesson that your own guardian angel has taught you?
My greatest lesson my own guardian angel has taught me, I think it's really about the experience of there is enough for everyone. Like that really is the thing that I have learned from them. And I think as soon as I lean into there's enough for everyone, the more the merrier. Like that's my motto. Then everything else is taken care of. The moment I shut down to that, I start to experience problems. Always. So if I don't get into the enoughness, I'll experience the not enoughness. Like that really is very, very fast. So there's enough for everyone. And I always try to make sure everyone feels included in everything I'm doing. Where if I'm going somewhere with a group, or I just want everyone to be together all the time. And as soon as I'm in that, everything else is taken care of. Always.
Beautiful. You have a great soul, brother. Great heart. I love to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good.
When was the last time you experienced that angels were with you?
About 2 nights ago, I woke up and there was a ginormous light in my bedroom. So I actually saw it pure with my own 2 real human eyes, standing in the room there.
Who was it?
Well, I think my mother was in the light with it, but it was my angels. My angels were there. And I remember waking up like, oh, are you there? And then I just fell asleep in the light again. But yeah, I woke up for the night. It was very real, very physical in the room. Yeah. Constantly get those things happening though.
Yeah. Because I know you dream a lot, and we're in those lucid states. Like, the veil is wide open.
No, I actually got up and was like, whoa, hi. Yeah. Some people say to me, like, does that not freak you out? But again, there's a feeling that comes with it. And the feeling is very warm. And no fear can exist when a love is present.
Back to the feeling. I love that.
I think that's the most important thing I'm going to share in the world.
Yeah.
Is the feeling. Yeah.
You know, people won't remember what we talked about in this conversation, maybe even in a week, but they'll remember how it made them feel. So
it's important stuff. Yeah. Feelings are big.
The last question we ask, this is called the time capsule question. We ask at the end of every show, and it requires us to travel out a little bit into the future, around 15 to 20 years down the line. And the reason I chose out those time frames is because I believe that that's going to be a time when the young generations of today will be stepping even more into leadership positions around the world. And just like any great leader, that they've had great mentors, great resources, great wisdom that came before them. And you are given the opportunity to leave behind a time capsule for them that they would open in 20 years down the line. And the intention of them opening it would be putting in all of the Cal Gray wisdom, compacting it in however you would want to leave behind. It doesn't have to be something physical. It could be something non-physical, whatever it is, to remind them why they're here to lead, and to remind them what they're here to accomplish in this golden age carrying forward. So what would you leave behind in a time capsule for the next generation of leaders?
Can it be a thing, or it
could be anything, a thing. It could be like whatever it is, a book, whatever it is.
I think I would actually leave a message, and my message would be, your role on earth is to create heaven, and heaven will not be possible unless everyone is welcomed. That would be it.
Powerful stuff. Kyle Gray, thank you so much for shedding light, being such a leader, especially for these young generations that are coming up, and them able to see themselves in you, which is something that I really value. And you're an inspiration to the world, brother. I can't wait to continue this friendship, collaboration, co-creation, whatever we want to do next. But I'm here for you, brother, and always supporting.
And I just want to thank you for being so brave. I think it's big work to put yourself out there and to open up so deeply like you have done. So thank you for that. And it's been a pleasure.